What is up? How's it going, everybody? Today I'm going to be talking about Maul Shadow Lord, or more specifically Star Wars Maul Shadow Lord is the official title. So I just finished watching this show a few days ago, and so I wanted to talk about it while it was still pretty fresh on my mind, and so let's just jump into it. I guess the first thing I should talk about is my initial reaction to this show being announced, and that initial reaction to this show being announced was similar to everything that gets announced that I'm actually looking forward to these days, which is that initial excitement mixed with just the dread of what if this is terrible, because there have been a lot of things in the last 10 years that I've looked forward to that have been just kind of subpar or disappointing, or my expectations, my hype was too high and it just kind of let me down. Thankfully, I can say unequivocally this is not one of those things. Maul Shadow Lord was great. And I guess I should clarify that this is about season 1, everything that's out right now. This isn't the full show because we are getting a season 2. Thank goodness, because this show definitely needs a season 2. I want to see this story continue, and that's really a telltale sign of a good show. Do I want it to continue, or do I feel like, I could take it or leave it? This one definitely needs a season 2. I think the story permits it. It didn't wrap up in a nice little bow, even though I did enjoy the final episode and how this first season concludes. It definitely leaves the door open for more story, which I think was always the plan. But anyway, as far as this first season goes, I really loved it. It was really good. I really enjoyed the sort of small scale story that we had going on in this first season. Sure, we've got a lot of big characters making appearances. Obviously, Maul is a big character, but I think that it just works being on this one particular world. This isn't like a galaxy-wide story or anything like that. For the most part, we stay on this one particular world. And I think that really just fits in well with what we have established in Star Wars already. I don't know exactly when this takes place, but you can use some context clues, like the stormtroopers that aren't fully stormtroopers yet. They're kind of still using the TK trooper design, even if they are classed as stormtroopers. I can't remember. But you've still got that going on, so you can kind of gauge this around the Bad Batch era, maybe slightly after. I really like what we do with Maul's character specifically, and the story that we give him in this show. It is his show after all. I think that it's very interesting to see him as not really a major player in the galaxy anymore. We kind of know that because by the time that Rebels comes around, he's just kind of off doing his own thing, still seeking revenge, but he's not anyone who's in power. And so it's interesting seeing him in this sort of in-between phase. He's not at the peak of his power, obviously, but he's sort of got some loyalists left. He's got some sort of pull in the underworld still. We know that he will amass more power by the time of Solo. We don't know how he loses it after that and becomes sort of this lone wolf character that we see in Rebels. But it's nice to get more of a deep dive and delve further into the evolution of his character. In my experience, this is something kind of new for Star Wars. I don't know if we're meant to root for Maul throughout the entirety of this show, even though he is the title character. But personally, I don't really root for Maul in this show until the Empire shows up and we have a greater evil. Up until that point, he's at odds with some of our other characters that we're following in this show, and I'm more inclined to root for them over him. And speaking of the other characters in this show, I really think that this show introduces some great characters that are kind of gonna be low-key fan favorites. Maybe not at the top of all Star Wars characters, but I think some of these characters are gonna be underrated favorites. For example, I really like Vario. I think he's a funny character, and I think he's kind of gonna go in this as Morgan sort of category for me, where he's not gonna be at the top of my favorite characters by any means, but he's gonna be one of those ones that I look back on with fondness. But honestly, I think Captain Brander Lawson might be my favorite character in this show. I know it's crazy to say that I liked him better in Maul than I liked Maul, but that's just the way it works. And I know some people might take that to be like an indictment of this show because it's a Maul show. You should be rooting for Maul over everyone else. But I don't see it that way. I think that's just a testament to the fact that Star Wars can still make great characters that you want to root for. If one overtakes your lead character in terms of how much you enjoy them in a particular show or in a particular season, I wouldn't say that's necessarily always a bad thing. In this instance, I don't think it is. I really enjoyed what we got from the Inquisitors in this first season. I think that the Inquisitors aren't always the most menacing enemies, but it's really nice to see them be menacing and to see them be competent, because that's what they're supposed to be. There are times when the Inquisitors make an appearance and they're just not all that threatening, and I think that's a problem for what they're meant to be in the Star Wars universe. They're meant to be threatening even to the likes of someone like Maul, and I'm glad to see that we're pushing that narrative forward a little bit more in this season, because in Rebels, the Inquisitors are no threat to Maul whatsoever. And I kind of like that aspect of it as well, because Maul is supposed to be on another level than these Inquisitors. But if you're thinking about the fact that they're supposed to be Jedi hunters and they're supposed to be able to fight and contend with Jedi, it makes more sense for them to be able to counter someone like Maul. But I also like that we were able to show them being competent, show them being threatening and menacing and powerful without any one Inquisitor being more powerful than Maul, because they shouldn't be. I'm glad that we saw Maul on the back foot a little bit and taking some hits, but it was in a 2v1 situation or something like that. That's the perfect way to deal with Maul versus Inquisitors, and I really enjoyed that. The inclusion of the Inquisitors is and isn't a spoiler. If you saw the trailer, you knew there were going to be Inquisitors in this show. But let me just say officially, spoiler alert, because I'm talking about stuff that isn't in the trailer now. The inclusion of Darth Vader is something that I really like in this show, because it makes sense that it would be Vader himself who would go after someone as powerful and as dangerous as Maul, especially coming from Sidious, his master. Sidious wants Maul off the board. Obviously, he would send whatever he had to make sure that that happened. And I do like that Maul and the Jedi aren't really able to do anything to Vader, because Vader's just at the peak of his power. Maul's injured. You know, the Jedi are just not up to the task in this particular instance. And so I like that confrontation. I like how powerful Vader seems. But I feel like this is another instance where it's kind of an indictment on Vader. What is Vader able to accomplish in live action or in animation? Because in Obi-Wan Kenobi, Obi-Wan beats him, lets him live, but he beats him handily. In Star Wars Rebels, Vader fails to kill Ahsoka. In Star Wars Rebels, he lets Ezra and Kanan escape in the Season 2 premiere, or the second episode of Season 2, I'm not sure which it was. But you have that. You have in the original trilogy, Luke gets away in Empire Strikes Back. Luke beats him in Return of the Jedi. And now you have another instance of Vader not really accomplishing his goal. Sure, he looks cool. Sure, he's powerful. Sure, he wins that fight. But Maul gets away. You know, Devin gets away. He gets one Jedi, but his other two would-be targets escape. And so as much as I like seeing Vader in these shows these days, you know, these newer appearances, they're just kind of adding fuel to the flame for the argument of what does Vader actually accomplish that he's supposed to go out and accomplish. Killing one Jedi out of two plus Maul was not his goal. He was not sent there for that Jedi, and so ultimately he failed. And so as much as I love Vader's appearance, as much as that fight was great, it's just another thing that doesn't hurt this show in particular. It just kind of hurts Vader's reputation throughout all of Star Wars. I will say that the thing about Vader's appearance in this show that kind of pulled me out of the show for a minute was the fact that he doesn't speak at all. And we know that Vader / Anakin loves to talk. And it just reminded me, after he didn't say anything for the first 10 seconds, it reminded me that it's because James Earl Jones passed away. I know he gave his likeness to Lucasfilm / Disney to use his voice in an AI recreation way. They didn't go for that in this particular show, which I was kind of waiting for him to say something to see what it would sound like, because they would have had to recreate it, but they just opted not to do that at all. I don't love it. I don't hate it. I don't want them to recreate his voice using AI, but a recast would be weird because it's such an iconic voice. But saying nothing also just makes me, think about the fact that the actor's gone and kind of pulls me out of the show. So there's really no winning. So this was just the option that they went with. It's a complaint, but there's really no great solution to it. Something else that's definitely a spoiler for this season is that my favorite character in this season, Brandor Lawson, is almost certainly dead based on what we see of you know, the last time we see him. So I'm just wondering if Lawson's ex-wife, Riley's mom, is going to have a change of heart, because as we know from this show, she is part of the Empire and she's living on Coruscant working for the Empire. And when he was getting into trouble, when Brander Lawson was getting into trouble, she was like, oh, don't worry, Riley, it's gonna be fine. The Empire's there to help and protect everyone and all that. I wonder if she's going to have a turning point with her character in season 2 when she learns that the Empire killed her ex-husband, or if she's not going to, because that's going to determine whether or not I really hate her or whether or not she's going to be alright. Because what she says to Riley this season can be forgiven just because nothing had happened that couldn't be undone at that point. But after what happened in the finale, she better have a turncoat storyline or else I'm not going to like her. Something that I commented on whenever I made a video about the trailer for this show was that I felt that the animation was getting almost over stylized. We've gone from, you know, what Clone Wars animation started as, all the way to the animation being what it is now, which is almost just like a painting all the time. We've gone through a lot of different phases in between there, but I almost feel like we peaked around a certain point and now we've just gone off the deep end with the over stylization of the animation. As good as it looks, it did take me a little bit to get into the animation style. It took me maybe 2 episodes to get used to the fact that not only is it just like the backgrounds that look like paintings, it's also sometimes entire scenes, characters, all these things. And personally, I think it's just one of those things that I'm gonna have to get used to, because I don't dislike it, but it just took a little adjustment period for me to get used to it for some reason. I don't remember Bad Batch being like this, or the Tales of this or the Tales of that. And obviously you can go back and you can see like the progression, but I feel like it just kind of popped at me this time around where it's like, whoa, this looks really like a painting, which I like, but I don't like, but I like. You know, I have mixed feelings about it.
I'm medium on it, you know, if I'm honest.
I can see it now. That's going to be the most controversial thing I've said in this video, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, overall, I couldn't be more pleased with how this show turned out. I had this sort of sinking feeling in my chest that this was going to let me down, and thankfully everyone was saying, oh, this is so great, this is so great. And so I watched it, and you know what, it was just as good as everyone said it was. I really enjoyed it. It, in my opinion, is the best animated project Star Wars has put out since Star Wars Rebels, and there have been a decent amount since then, so I think that just says a lot. I know they're already working on season 2, but honestly, I am so excited. It can't come fast enough. I can't wait to see what familiar faces we're going to see as allies or as enemies, or where the story is going to take us next. But I just can't wait to continue this journey. But yeah, what did you think of the first season of Star Wars Maul Shadow Lord? Did it live up to your expectations? Do you think it lived up to the hype? Let me know in the comments down below, because I definitely think that it did. But you know, maybe this show isn't for everybody. So I guess let me know what your thoughts on it are. But I think that's all I've got to say about the first season of Star Wars Maul Shadow Lord. I could talk more about the specifics for a long time, and that's why I'm not going to do it. So this video isn't an hour long. But yeah, in the meantime, if you want to help me out here on YouTube, liking this video, commenting on this video, subscribing to the channel, clicking that little notification bell that I always forget to mention, or checking out some other videos, all those things help me grow the YouTube channel. I've done reviews on lots of other Star Wars things, Marvel, DC, comic books, you know, random things, animated movies, so on and so forth. I'm doing a little bit of gaming right now as well, trying to get into that. So yeah, if you want to check any of that out, I would greatly appreciate it. And yeah, until next time. Bye.